As Operation Olive Branch continues with all its military operations, there is diplomacy behind it. We will talk to Volkan Bozkir, a politician and a former diplomat, about what has been spoken behind the closed doors as well as international relations. I am Gonca Şenay and you are watching One on One. What is the reason behind Turkey's military operation in Syria's Afrin?
Well, Turkey has obtained some experience from what happened in Iraq, actually. During the period when the United States intervened, invaded, there was a no-fly zone, and it caused the PKK terrorist organization to flourish in a way. And when the United States left Iraq with artillery and ammunition behind, it was a kind of a seed artillery for the PKK organization. That caused 30,000 lives to be lost in Turkey, and in today's calculations, it's something over $1 trillion of spendings from the budget, which should have been used for the welfare and education and for the future of the Turkish people. So, having seen that, we are very keen in what's going on in Syria as well. It is a tragedy in some countries in Europe that they differ between terrorist organizations. They say this is less bad than the other one. The other one is bad, but this is not as bad as that one. This is completely a big mistake, because a terrorist organization is founded to kill people, to cause anarchy, to do things which is not in the benefit of the people. So for us, in Syria, this PYD-YPG group is not different from what PKK is. It's actually the same group with a different name. Mm-hmm. The organization chart is same. The instructions are coming from the same localization, and the aim is actually same. We do not want a terrorist group to form a belt in our southern neighborhood. And actually, Syria is not a country which is far away from us. We have lived together for centuries. We know every village, every town, every geographical formation there. And we know in which village or in which town what was the ethnical distribution. When we see in northern Syria, where for 1,000 years Arabs lived, Turkmens lived, Christians lived, Kurds lived, and we know the proportions they had. When we see that the Arabs, the Turkmens, the Christians disappeared, and some places became complete majority Kurdish, this is unacceptable. And it is unfair in a way to the people who lived there for 1,000 years. So in a way, what we are doing is, first of all, to prevent a terrorist organization form as our neighbor in our south, in Syria. And the second aim is, of course, to clean northern Syria from this terrorist group, allow people who are our guests, 3 million Syrian guests we have in Turkey, and we want them to make a choice. When they feel secure about their homeland, they most probably will go back and live in Syria. They have not come here to find new jobs or find a better life. They came because their towns were bombed, their families were killed, their cities were destroyed. So they escaped, leaving behind everything they had there. And they lost many parts of their families. So if we can achieve this target, this goal, and have a part of Syria which is under the terrorist group's threat. It was under Daesh group's threat. Now it is under PYD, YPG terrorist group's threat. And if it is clean from terrorism, and if new residential areas could be constructed, we can move some of these people back to their homes.
Why is that region open to threats?
Unfortunately, it has not been the case before. I mean, even though we didn't like the style and the system, for 42 years, both in Iraq and in Syria, what we call dictators actually administered the two countries. But of course, it didn't allow any opposition or civil society or democracy at full extent live in the country. So when they disappeared from the scene, the gap was filled by anarchy and difficult situations. With Turkey and Syria, as we're talking, the border between Turkey and Syria was drawn according to the railroad passing from the mid of the towns. So the border suddenly became, because of the railroad, a partition of families. The people in the same town living in the south of the railroad became Syrian citizens, and the north of the railroad became Turkish citizens. So actually Syria never accepted the decision of the Hatay people to join Turkey after the plebiscite of the United Nations. So in the maps of Syria, you have always seen, including now, that Hatay is a part of Syria. And it's referred to terrorism. The terrorist leader Abdullah Öcalan lived more than 20 years in Damascus. But when the father Assad died and son Bashar came, we turned the page and wanted to establish a good relation with Syria. And we managed that. We were very successful. Borders were removed, visits were occurring, and people were very happy. But the Arab Spring, in a way, was a nuclear bomb on this. Bashar was afraid that his future, his destiny will be like Saddam, Mubarak or al-Qaddafi. So he preferred, he chose the wrong alternative. Instead of, he should have done the correct thing, saying to the people, I'm your president. I will do what you ask me to do. I will change the constitution, have a new government, give you more rights, like the Jordanian king did, or what happened in Tunisia or in Morocco. He didn't do that and started killing his people. And at that point, we had to make a decision. We chose the people instead of the leader. That's why we invested for the future. If we have a new Syria, democratic rule of law, and this Syria will remember what Turkey had done. If we had joined Bashar while he was killing the Syrian people, those people would have blamed Turkey for 100 years. There would have never been a friendship. But now those people will remember what Turkey has done. 3 million people is our guests. They will say, in our hard time, you were with us. And that is an investment for another more than 100 years of friendship between a new Syria and Turkey. So that's where we are. I hope that this operation, this olive branch operation in Afrin will be successful. And then we will also solidify the territorial integrity of Syria. We don't have any aim of getting land from Syria. And it will pave the way for a new Syria, where every part of Syria is is clean from terrorism. We would not like to have a new Syria, only the seacoast in welfare, but the desert part in the hands of all the terrorists in the world, and the northern part in the hands of another terrorist group, PYD. It will never work. That would not lead us to a peaceful, democratic Syria, which will be a part of the international world.
You mentioned that PKK is equivalent to YPG, but we knew PKK for years, for decades. Where did this YPG come from?
It is a kind of a plan and strategy. There are some countries in the world who have plans about the Middle East. It's not today's happening. It is with us since the First World War. And you may see strategic plans, how to have new countries in the region, how to have new names in the region. So these are in a way fed financially, militarily, strategically, ideologically from some countries in the world. Because some terrorists cannot have so many ammunition with their own efforts. It will need a lot of money, it will need obtaining these ammunition, military welfare, and also strategies to do these fighting. There's something, a strong hand behind them, which in a way creates these kind of formations. Remember what happened in Kobani. It is a town where normally there is no Kurds, but Ain al-Arab suddenly became one of the priority issue in the Western world. I was traveling around and I was showing a map where 1 hour of our talks was on Kobani. I was asking them, can you show me where Kobani is? Nobody knew where Kobani is. Some of them even didn't know where Iraq is or where Syria is. But I mean, this is a psychological warfare, and this mechanism is so strong to give the impression based on wrong data and wrong information, but it creates a kind of an understanding in everyday's, I mean, normal people on the streets. They don't read much. They don't try to understand what is behind. But in 10 seconds on a TV program, they are really very much affected by this false information war.
We are discussing a 30-kilometer safety zone now that Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said US also has proposed this. Do you think this is adequate to solve Turkey's problem in the region?
Well, we first pronounced a 30-kilometer security belt until the Iranian border, actually. But of course, all the Satan is hidden in the details in diplomacy, you know. So when US made kind of a statement that let us together establish a 30-kilometer security zone in your southern border, I think that Foreign Minister correctly replied to that today, saying that first, confidence must be built. We do not trust each other because many things were said previously, many promises were made, none of them has been realized. So who is going to be controlling this security zone? Is it again going to be PYD, YPG, or who is it? And of course the very, I think, wrong statement made establishing a border security group of 30,000. Who was this group controlling? I mean, it's the Turkish-Syrian border.
You are a very experienced diplomat. Why do you think US is backing this terrorist group? They say Turkey has legitimate rights. then we see the pictures of their high-level commanders with YPG terrorists. Why is US doing this?
Well, the reason is after Iraq, the United States made a second mistake by not being in Syria when Syria needed the United States. It's because of United States isolationist policies, where the American people didn't want American soldiers to be killed in other countries, because Saddam was killed. The Satans for the American people was Gaddafi's, Osama bin Laden and Saddam. So it was very difficult for the US administration to convince the people that it was necessary for US security to be present in Syria and some soldiers might be killed. So instead they wanted to draw back all their soldiers, including Afghanistan. So in that period, Russia came there. And Iran, in a way, in the format of cleaning Mosul and some parts of Iraq with their milice groups, Iran came there. Turkey was always there. So US then saw this picture and said, why am I not there? So the US wants to come back there. But they are choosing the wrong partner. The only partner for Turkey in that region under these circumstances can only be Turkey. They cannot work with with Russia. They cannot work with Iran. They can, but they have chosen YPG, and instead of Turkey. If they cooperate with Turkey, if they form this cooperation and coalition with Turkey, why not? We will be happy to do it together. But when they are going to Raqqa, they use YPG, while we have offered them to use our capacities there. When there's need to clean Münbiç has never been a Kurdish town. And our first aim is to clean Western Euphrates from terrorist entities. And Münbiç, after Afrin, is the only place left. So first we will have to clean west of Euphrates. And then, of course, we will also have to consider east. But if US wants to be present there, I think the only partner they can have is Turkey, and they should rethink about this for the sake of good relations between Turkey and the United States, and prove that we are strategic partners and model relation having two important countries.
How do you see Turkish President Erdogan's phone conversation? How do you see the outcome of Turkish President's phone conversation with the US President Trump?
It is good that they have talked, first of all. I believe that instead of giving messages through the press, it's always better to talk face to face or directly, listen to each other and try to find if there's a way, common way to be found. So last night's telephone conversation was, from that perspective, very important, timely, and it is between the US President and the Turkish President, who are who are supposed to be the good actors, strongest actors in the region as well, and the world for the peace and security and solidarity and for welfare of the world. So White House has made a press statement about what was talked, and we made also a statement about what we talked. It's normal that both sides, after these kind of conversations, each side makes statements about what they said to the other. So the foreign minister today is saying that in the White House statement some parts were not mentioned. So it may be the staffers who actually prepared the talking points, gave it directly to the press. It may not be necessarily actually what President Trump used during the conversation. But it doesn't matter. It's not very important what is leaked to the press or given to the press. Important thing is what has really been talked during that conversation. And my impression is that it was a positive conversation. They talked to each other, they raised their concerns, and I think it provides another possibility for another talk in the very near future.
As you are a part of these diplomatic efforts to explain this operation to rest of the world, how do you interpret the international reaction? Seems like the main concern is about the humanitarian issues.
Well, I think we made very clearly the reasons, the target, and how long it will take, why we are there. It's well understood. There is nothing wrong with it. It is first of all legitimate. The UN Charter's 51st article gives right to every country to defend itself against an attack or a threat. And there are many UN Security Council decisions which refers to need to fight against terrorism, and it's really sends messages to countries not to give financial aid or ammunition or military support to terrorist groups. So when we refer to these United Nations decisions and accepted legal framework, I think it was one of the reasons why a negative reaction didn't come. Everybody knows that it is our border. We are the closest country to that region. 3 million Syrian friends live in Turkey, and there are missile attacks from that region to Turkish towns. Yesterday, two Turkish citizens were killed, more than 15 was wounded. 2 days ago, another missile hit another part of Hatay. 2 people again died. So there is a threat to Turkish citizens. There is a threat about an immigration from that part of the region. And of course, our aim is we will respect the territorial integrity of Syria. Our aim is to clean that part from terrorists and move some of the guests we are having in our country to that region, and in a way pave the way for a new Syria. So people understand that. They will look if we are doing what we are saying or not. But we will do what we are saying, not more, not less. The aim is the operation will continue until the last terrorist is removed or eliminated from the region.
Very recently, Prime Minister Binali Yıldırım said the YPG is targeting NATO's borders. Turkey has been criticizing NATO, especially after the July 15th coup attempt. Where does NATO stand?
The Prime Minister is right saying that, because Turkish-Syria border, Turkish-Iranian or Iraqi border is also NATO's border with those countries. So NATO has all the obligation to protect not only Turkey, but also its own borders. If Turkey is under attack, it is NATO's obligation to prevent these attacks. That's why we asked for anti-missile protection from NATO. They sent some artillery, but then they removed almost all of them. So that's why Turkey wants to buy some missile anti-defense systems, anti-missile systems for its defense purposes. And it is in a way a shame for the NATO countries that Turkey was left alone and all these mechanisms were removed. But of course, in the beginning, NATO Secretary General and many NATO countries have made positive statements saying that every country has its rights to defend itself And we look at the Turkish operation from this perspective, with all the statements in a way saying that it should be fair and time limited and do not harm civilians. It's actually our aim.